Welcome, dear listeners, to another chilling episode of our scary stories. As the sun dips below the horizon and shadows stretch into corners, it's time to gather around and delve into the realm of the eerie unknown. I'm your host, whispering into your ears the tales that haunt the silence of the night. So, brace yourselves. Find a cozy corner, switch off the lights, and let the blanket of darkness envelop you as we journey into tonight's spine-chilling story. In the hush of twilight, a salt-infused wind swept through the streets of the coastal hamlet of Cobble's Crest. Fishing nets, hung to dry on ramshackle cottages, danced in the breeze, as did the aged weather vanes atop the storm-beaten roofs. The cobblestone lanes, usually humming with the chatter of village folk, were deserted, and unsettling quietude was the only resident tonight. Somewhere in the distance, the steady rhythm of crashing waves echoed a melancholy tune that whispered old tales of high seas and marauders. It was an eerie lullaby to the descendants of brave souls who dared to cross swords with the infamous pirate Octavian. In the heart of the village, bathed in the pale glow of a flickering oil lamp, sat the village inn. Within its sturdy stone walls, a different storm was brewing. Huddled around a creaking wooden table, with mugs of frothy ale clenched in their calloused hands, were the protagonists of our story, a trio of local youths, Edmund, Isabella, and young Tom. Edmund, son of the village blacksmith, was a strapping lad, his eyes as gray and unyielding as the iron he hammered. Isabella, the fisherman's daughter, had the sea in her veins. Her deep-set, green eyes echoed the resolve of the endless ocean. Lastly, there was Tom, with spectacles perched precariously on his nose. The bookish son of the local apothecary might seem an odd companion, but his wit and knowledge were invaluable. Suspended in the low chatter and smoky air of the inn, the tales of Octavian and his ruthless crew painted a canvas of dread and awe. The time-worn villagers, hunched over their ale, whispered of Octavian's terrifying reign at sea, how his haunting laughter would echo over the waves as he plundered innocent vessels. They spoke in hushed voices of his execution at the hands of their ancestors, and the curse he spat with his last breath. As Edmund, Isabella, and Tom listened, their faces were a tableau of fear and fascination. Edmund's iron gaze was unwavering, Isabella's slender fingers gripped her mug tighter, and young Tom, his brows furrowed, was deep in thought. The trio exchanged silent glances, each feeling an unspoken agreement pass between them. Outside, the wind picked up its pace, humming an ancient tune. The sea roared with fury, and the village of Cobble's Crest huddled under the weight of its history. Beneath the brooding skies, an old prophecy seemed to stir once again, ready to awaken from its slumber and breathe a new life into the spectral legacy of a long-dead pirate. Unbeknownst to the villagers, they were on the cusp of a harrowing adventure, and at its heart were Edmund, Isabella, and Tom, who would soon discover that their lives were about to be irrevocably intertwined with the echoes of a vengeful spirit. The sky transformed as night fell, the indigo abyss above filled with a scattering of cold, gleaming stars. The moon cast long, eerie shadows that danced and flickered over the cobblestone streets of Cobble's Crest. As the wind continued its mournful song, the sea mirrored the celestial spectacle with an ominous, crashing symphony of its own. A daunting tempest was brewing, the furious tide rising to challenge the coastline. The violent waves foamed and snarled, as if giving voice to the vengeful spirit of the ruthless pirate who once held dominion over these waters. Within the storm's fury, a haunting sight materialized. Far out at sea, translucent, glowing apparitions of ships began to emerge from the watery abyss. Ethereal and ghostly, they bore the menacing signature of the notorious Octavian's fleet. A chill swept through the villagers who had come to watch the spectacle, a chill born of fear, anticipation, and the weight of their ancestral guilt. Back at the village inn, the door crashed open, letting in a gust of salty, chilling wind. A frantic villager, his face pale and eyes wide with terror, spoke of the ominous fleet that had emerged from the stormy sea. The inn fell silent, the dread-laced words hanging heavy in the air. The normally comforting crackle of the fireplace seemed to flicker anxiously, casting long, fearful shadows around the room. Edmund, Isabella, and Tom exchanged a knowing glance. The story they had heard earlier, the chilling folklore of Octavian's revenge, seemed to be unfolding before them. Edmund's fingers clenched into a firm fist. Isabella's eyes mirrored the resolve of the ocean she had grown up with. And Tom, ever the scholar, furrowed his brows even more, lost deeper in his thoughts. Outside, as the ethereal fleet hovered ominously in the distance, the village of Cobble's Crest, illuminated by the uncanny glow, lay in petrified anticipation. The wind screamed out a dreadful harmony with the roaring waves, and the ancestral homes shook in fear, echoing the terror of their inhabitants. Unseen by the fearful onlookers, the ghostly fleet left a trail of chilling mist, a path leading back to a past the village had hoped to forget. Unknowingly, they were standing at the edge of a precipice, on the brink of a nightmarish journey into the abyss of Octavian's wrath. As the gusts blew harder and the waves crashed louder, the trio felt a shared sense of responsibility and dread, a task that needed to be done, a wrong that needed to be righted. For Edmund, Isabella, and Tom, the ghostly ships were not just an echo of their village's haunted past, but a summons from beyond, a call to courage they could not ignore. The following morning dawned gray and weary. The sea, still churning from last night's spectacle, washed the shores of Cobble's Crest with a mournful sigh. The once bustling village was somber, its inhabitants casting weary glances towards the ominous ocean. Edmund, Isabella, and Tom found themselves in the dim light of the village library, surrounded by towering shelves laden with dusty tomes and parchment records. The air smelled of old paper and time-forgotten secrets, a scent that only deepened their sense of unease. As they pored over ancient records and diaries kept by their ancestors, the tale of Octavian took on a darker and more chilling tone. They discovered details of Octavian's exploits, tales of his mercilessness, and cruel pleasure in instilling fear. They read about his capture, the trial, and the terrifying curse he spat at the village folk as he was executed for his sins. The more they delved, the more complex and ominous Octavian's story became. They learned of his treasure, an unimaginable hoard he had pillaged and plundered from the innocent. Buried somewhere, they discovered, was a treasure beyond worldly riches, his personal belongings, a testament to the man he had been before becoming a pirate. Their discovery took a turn when they found a hint towards a rumored ritual, something that could allegedly appease the wrath of Octavian's vengeful spirit. As Tom's finger traced over the faded, cryptic instructions, a shiver ran down their spines. It wasn't just about returning his treasure, it was about acknowledging his suffering. Outside, Cobble's Crest was unnaturally silent. The usually bustling market was subdued. The sea's roar echoed through the desolate streets, and the scent of salt and fear was heavy in the air. The villagers watched as the trio moved in and out of the library throughout the day, their faces etched with a mixture of dread and hope. As the sun started to set, casting a gloomy hue over the village, Edmund, Isabella, and Tom sat huddled in the library. With every word they read and every secret they uncovered, they felt the weight of their mission press heavily on their shoulders. The eerie silence of the village around them mirrored their mood, a mix of anticipation, fear, and a determination to unearth the truth and right the wrongs of their ancestors. For the trio, Octavian was no longer just a figure from old folk tales. He was a ghost from the past, reminding them of their history and responsibility. His haunting image, once terrifying, was now filled with layers of fear, complexity, and a tragic tale of a man lost to his own revenge. Cobble's Crest slept fitfully that night, its inhabitants locked in the grip of restless dreams. The village, once a vibrant mosaic of fishermen and simple folk, was now a canvas painted with trepidation. This disquiet was echoed by the ocean, its rhythm and erratic symphony of apprehension. Dawn peeked over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of melancholy purple and tentative orange. With the break of day, Edmund, Isabella, and Tom, weary from a night of fitful sleep, gathered again at the village library. Today, their task was clear. They had to find the first clue, a riddle hidden in the diary of Cobble's Crest's first mayor, which would lead them to Octavian's buried treasure. Poring over the aged diary, they found the riddle hidden in an innocent-looking account of daily village life. When day surrenders to night's embrace, seek the maiden in the celestial space. Her gaze, unyielding, points to the place where land meets water. Seek Octavian's trace. Though the riddle was cryptic, the trio was determined. Edmund, with his iron resolve, Isabella, with her inherent understanding of the sea, and Tom, with his analytical mind, began to decipher it. By the time dusk had begun to drape itself over the village, a sense of excitement filled the air. The trio, after hours of careful deduction, had made progress. They believed the maiden in the celestial space referred to the constellation Virgo, visible from the village at this time of year. If they were correct, Virgo's direction at dusk should guide them towards Octavian's buried treasure. As night fell, Edmund, Isabella, and Tom moved towards the shoreline, the weight of their mission pressing against their hearts. The sea, once a childhood playground, now reflected the ethereal glow of the ghost fleet in the distance. Yet, amid the chill and fear, there was anticipation. Armed with a compass and a telescope, the trio followed Virgo's gaze. The constellation, a beacon in the endless dark expanse, seemed to approve of their quest. Its twinkling stars pointed to a distant area where the restless sea met the rocky coast, an isolated spot infamous for swallowing ships during storms. The daunting task ahead of them was clear as they stood in the moonlight, their shadows wavering on the rocky beach. The forgotten path to Octavian's past lay under the sea's watchful waves, a secret etched in the sands of time. As the echo of the sea filled their ears and the biting cold of the night prickled their skin, a sense of determination cemented in their hearts. For Edmund, Isabella, and Tom, their journey had truly begun. The ghostly image of Octavian and his fleet, haunting the seas, spurred them on. Amid the fear and anticipation, they were ready to unearth the legacy buried under the weight of their village's past, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The moon hung heavy in the star-studded sky, casting a silvery sheen over the village of Cobble's Crest. The sea mirrored the lunar radiance, its rippling waves glinting under the ethereal glow. Night was at its darkest, the world held in the hushed stillness of anticipation. Our trio, Edmund, Isabella, and Tom, equipped with lanterns and grit, found themselves standing at the edge of the rocky beach. Before them lay the dark expanse of the sea, its surface a veil hiding Octavian's secret. Isabella, the sea's child, was their guide for this part of the journey. Casting the beam of her lantern on the churning waves, Isabella led Edmund and Tom towards the water. The sea greeted them with a cold embrace, its icy fingers sending shivers through their bodies. As they waded deeper, the village lights became distant twinkling stars, their only connection to the world they knew. Guided by the celestial map above, Isabella steered them towards the area where the sea met the rocks. As they approached, the beam of the lantern revealed an underwater cavern nestled at the base of the sea-facing cliffs. It was as if the sea and land had conspired to hide Octavian's crypt from the world. Holding their breath, they plunged under the waves, swimming into the mouth of the cavern. As they delved deeper, they entered a world untouched by time. The cavern walls bore strange markings, illuminated by the lantern's glow. There was a peculiar serenity to this submerged crypt, the silence punctuated only by the occasional bubbles escaping their mouths. In the heart of the cavern, they found it, a dilapidated wooden chest, once magnificent, now decayed by time and seawater. Tom, ever the scholar, recognized the intricate carvings on it. They were symbols related to Octavian's flag, etched into the wood as a final testament to his rule over the seas. The sight of the chest filled them with a sense of foreboding and accomplishment. Here lay the treasure of Octavian, a symbol of his haunted past. Even as fear gnawed at their hearts, they felt a sense of excitement. They had successfully completed half of their mission. But as they reached out to touch the chest, the cavern shivered around them. A cold current whipped through the water, and an inexplicable force pushed them back. It was a reminder that their task was far from over. The treasure was only the beginning. The ritual, Octavian's final demand, was yet to be performed. As they emerged from the cavern and swam back to shore, they carried with them a mix of dread and determination. Their clothes clung to their bodies, and their hearts pounded in their chests, mirroring the rhythmic crashing of the waves. As they looked back at the sea, it seemed to whisper old tales of wrath and revenge, reminding them of the task that lay ahead. In the silence of the night, under the watchful gaze of the moon and stars, Edmund, Isabella, and Tom were just figures on a shore, their shadows swallowed by the darkness. But in their hearts, they carried the weight of a curse centuries old and the resolve to break it. For them, this night was not an end but the beginning of the end. The rest of their journey lay shrouded in uncertainty, but they were ready. The echoes of Octavian's vengeful spirit wouldn't be haunting them or their village for much longer. As dawn broke, the cold morning light revealed a village waking up to a day unlike any other. The silhouette of the ghostly fleet, a little less menacing under the morning sun, remained a silent threat on the horizon. Despite the lingering dread, the people of Cobble's Crest went about their morning routine, casting worried glances at the sea and the trio who had braved it in the night. Edmund, Isabella, and Tom found themselves back in the library, the damp chill from their nocturnal swim replaced by the musky scent of ancient books. A wooden chest, once submerged in the depths of the sea, now lay on a table before them. As the sun streamed in through the dusty windows, the room took on an eerie tranquility. The treasure chest, no longer just a legend, seemed almost benign in the morning light. Yet, its weathered exterior and the intricate carvings held a menacing reminder of its original owner, the formidable pirate Octavian. Opening the chest was a moment of intense anticipation. The trio held their breath as Tom lifted the lid. Inside lay Octavian's personal belongings, a collection of strange artifacts, each a symbol of the man behind the legend. There was an antique compass, its needle spinning erratically, an ornate dagger, the hilt encrusted with precious stones, an old, leather-bound diary, and several other items that spoke volumes about Octavian's life at sea. However, the most compelling item was a piece of parchment, yellowed with age and delicately folded. It bore a series of cryptic symbols, a language known only to the pirate fraternity of the past. Decoding this was their key to performing the ritual that would bring closure to Octavian's vengeful spirit. Over the course of the day, the library transformed into a decoding den. Tom, the scholar among them, took the lead, his intellect and analytical mind a beacon in the ocean of cryptic symbols. Edmund and Isabella, providing essential insight, stood by his side, the intensity of their task binding them together. As the hours rolled by, the trio made headway. The script, which first appeared as gibberish, started making sense. It was not just a message, it was a story. It was Octavian's story. A tale of a man led astray by his ambitions, a tale of regret and a longing for redemption. The final piece of the puzzle was a detailed description of a ritual, a sequence of events that was more an appeal for forgiveness than an eerie witchcraft ceremony. It involved the use of Octavian's personal items in a symbolic act of returning his belongings, an acknowledgement of his past, and a call for him to let go of his anger. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Cobble's crest settled into an uneasy silence. The sea's roar echoed through the quiet streets, and the ghost fleet glowed ominously under the moonlight. But in the confines of the library, a spark of hope flickered. The trio, a step closer to their goal, knew their most challenging task was yet to come. As they prepared for the ritual, the specter of Octavian and the magnitude of their responsibility loomed large in their minds. They carried not just the weight of their village's past, but the possibility of its peaceful future. The following day, the morning sun unveiled a village on the edge. Each rising wave was a harbinger of the impending ritual that would determine the fate of Cobble's Crest. The ghost fleet lay anchored in the distance, its ethereal glow subdued in the daylight, but its ominous presence ever pervasive. Edmund, Isabella, and Tom found themselves at the heart of their village, standing on the historic platform where Octavian was executed. The air was thick with anticipation, the usually busy village square eerily quiet. The villagers watched from a distance, their eyes filled with a mixture of fear, hope, and reverence for the courageous trio. Before them lay Octavian's belongings, their purpose now fully understood. The antique compass that had guided the pirate through unknown seas, the ornate dagger that spoke of countless battles fought, and the parchment with Octavian's life story, each held an integral part in the forthcoming ritual. The execution platform, once a symbol of Octavian's defeat, was now to become a stage for his redemption. Tom, his fingers trembling slightly, unfolded the parchment. It scripted the blueprint for their actions. He began to read aloud, his voice echoing through the silent square. Edmund was the first to step forward. Holding the antique compass, he raised it towards the sky, symbolizing Octavian's unquenched desire to explore the seas. Next, Isabella picked up the ornate dagger. In a symbolic gesture, she placed it on the ground, laying to rest the countless conflicts Octavian had instigated. Finally, Tom, holding the parchment, read out Octavian's tale, his voice a conduit for the pirate's plea for forgiveness. As the sun began to dip, casting long shadows across the square, the ritual reached its climax. The trio, holding the items, repeated Octavian's final words, inscribed at the bottom of the parchment. In the face of the setting sun, we acknowledge your journey done. We release you from your sin. May your soul find peace within. Suddenly, the air grew chilly, a shiver running through the square. The villagers gasped as the sea roared louder, its waves lashing angrily against the shore. For a heart-stopping moment, the world seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Then, as the last light of the setting sun touched the horizon, a profound calm descended. The waves quieted, and a warm breeze gently swept across the village square. All eyes turned towards the ghostly fleet. In a moment of indescribable magic, each ship started to fade, slowly dissolving into the evening mist. Edmund, Isabella, and Tom, their hearts pounding in their chests, watched in silent awe as the haunting glow of the ghost fleet vanished into the growing dusk. Their breaths hitched as they realized the significance of the moment. The curse of Octavian had been lifted. As the last remnants of the ghostly fleet disappeared, a collective sigh of relief echoed through Cobble's Crest. The villagers broke into cheers, their eyes glistening with unshed tears, and smiles of pure relief. The trio, their mission accomplished, exchanged a look of triumph, their hearts filled with a sense of accomplishment. As night fell, the village erupted in celebration. The laughter and cheer replaced the fear and anticipation that had clouded their days. The tale of Edmund, Isabella, and Tom, the brave souls who had faced the wrath of Octavian and emerged victorious, became the newest legend of Cobble's Crest. And for the first time in many sleepless nights, the village slept peacefully, the specter of the ghost fleet finally laid to rest. And so, dear listeners, we come to the end of this bone-chilling tale. As we bid farewell to the haunted shores of Cobble's Crest and leave the ghostly fleet behind, remember, darkness is not just a shroud that hides our fears. It's also the canvas where our courage shines the brightest. Keep these tales close to your heart, for they are the echoes that fill the silence of the night. Join me again for another eerie tale in the next episode of our scary stories. Until then, sleep tight, and remember, the darkness isn't always empty. This is our Scary Stories signing off for tonight.